Well, hello, it is January the 29th, and I hope you're having a great day wherever you happen to be, whenever you happen to be listening to this video. Now, before I get into it, let me introduce myself. My name is Gary Willing, and let me introduce to you about what we talk about here on this channel. So, we talk about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. We talk about who and what Maitreya is, and as with the case with this video, we're going to talk a little bit about who and what Maitreya is not. We're going to talk about why are the masters returning now to the everyday world, and what does it mean? Now, we tie it into the current events of the time, and if you're somebody who is aware of the current events of the time and watches the news, reads the news on the internet perhaps, or even, you're old school and you like reading the newspaper, you know better than anyone the problems of the world, right? The political divisions, the economic divisions, the economic uncertainty, the fact that the markets just keep getting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. I mean, when's that bubble going to burst, right? And what's going to happen after that? And then you would know about the social unrest that's happening in the United States, all around the world, and so forth. Of course, everybody knows about the coronavirus. And then the fact that if you were semi-concerned about the environment, we still haven't done anything about the environment. So what is that going to happen? What's that going to mean? Now, with all these problems that are raging on, and with each passing day and week and month and year, it seems like there's a new problem that just crops up. You would probably be left with the fact that there's not a lot of hope. But never fear, there is actually evidence of hope out there. In a world where we have political divisions, economic uncertainty, hunger, war, crime, famine, upheaval, and so forth, the coronavirus, there are miracles going on. You might have been aware of it, you might not. You might have had a miracle happen to you personally. You might have seen some of these miracles or experienced these miracles for yourself. So let me run down a little bit of a list because there's a lot to cover, and I would probably take about a half hour for me to cover all the miracles. But anything from crosses of light, healing waters that appeared in Mexico, Germany, and India, and then will eventually, over the coming time, there will be hundreds and hundreds of miracle wells all over the world. People claiming that those wells have cured anything from AIDS to cancer to diabetes to hepatitis to a lot of different stuff. Crosses of light that appear in panes of glass and windows and homes and churches that all of a sudden just miraculously appear. To weeping icons, Hindu milk miracle, to people cutting open fruit and the seeds spell out Allah, UFOs, patterns that appear in, very intricate patterns. They used to be called crop circles, but now they're like very beautiful patterns that appear in crops and so forth, to the Norwegian spiral, to lights over Jerusalem, to angel sightings, to disappearing hitchhikers, where somebody will pick up a hitchhiker and that hitchhiker will say they're sitting in the back seat and will say, "Did you know that the Christ has returned already to the world?" and then disappear. That's happened. Just the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So you get the point. Now, what we're saying on this channel, like I said, is that's evidence of hope. So there, and what does it mean? Why are we living in a world with all these problems, but yet evidence of hope? What I'm saying is that it's proof and evidence that the teacher who made a promise to not only the Christians to come back as the Christ, made a promise to the Muslims to come back as the Imam Mahdi, made a promise to the Hindus to come back as the Kalki Avatar, promised the Jews to come as the Messiah, and the Buddhists to come back as the fifth Buddha. Now, if don't align yourself with any of those 5 religions, don't feel like you're left out, because the teacher made a promise to the whole world to come back. And that hope is for the whole world, not just for the religious groups, not just for the Christians. I'm sorry to break it to you, Christians. You don't have a monopoly on the truth. The truth belongs to everyone. And the promise has been kept. The teacher is already here. He came, just as he said to the Christians, in an hour when you least expect it, like a thief in the night. And he slipped into London, and July 19th, 1977. And since then, there's been progress that's been made to where actually the teacher is now speaking on TV, presenting himself as just an ordinary person, Not much different than what Jesus did 2,000 years ago, where Jesus was just a very humble son of a carpenter, not a warrior king like the Jews were expecting the Messiah to come back. He appears vastly different than the religious groups are expecting him to come back, but the promise has been kept. Now, it's not so important that you listen to these videos and believe what I believe about who and what the teacher is. The teacher's name is Maitreya, but you don't have to believe anything about what Maitreya is saying. It's far more important to want for the world what he's advocating for the world, which is what we'll also talk about as priorities. Now, there are other priorities that Maitreya has that humanity must work on over the coming time, but we have to do something first. Everybody has a top priority, right? His top priority for humanity is humanity must create peace. Now, you might also sit here and go, I don't know how to create peace. What can I do, right? Or that's never going to happen, or, that's just utopian. Well, the teacher says it's very simple, actually. He says, without sharing, there could be no justice. Without justice, there could be no peace. Without peace, there could be no future. So our very survival depends on whether we create peace or not. If you look at the first piece of the path to peace, that's a double entendre, the principle of sharing. Okay, now, you might not know what that is either, because most people don't know. But it was tried one time, and it was right after World War II in the 40s, where the United States wanted to help Europe out, and the way it did it is exactly how we need to do what we need to do globally in order to create world peace. But the United States took a bit of the excesses that they had and gave it to Western Europe to rebuild Europe, and it did that. We gave them lumber, we gave them food, concrete, clothing, so they rebuilt their houses, their schools, their factories, and so forth, got the lights back on. It stabilized the social unrest. It boosted their economies, of course. It got them back up on their feet. And after that, they had a little excesses that they gave back to the United States as payment. And when they did that, it created an economic boom in the United States, too. So it helped Europe. It helped the United States. That's what happened in the 40s when we did this. Now, here's what I want you to take away from these videos, okay? It's not so important to listen to the videos, where we talk, during the time of these videos when we talk about Maitreya, being the one awaited by all the world's religions. But if you look at it from the principle of sharing standpoint, okay, this is what's most important. 70 so years ago, when the Marshall Plan took place and ended, it had a long-term effect that's being affected. It's affecting things even to today. The United States and the Western European nations have a more peaceful, loving, trusting relationship. No, not loving, but a trusting relationship than we have with any other nations on the planet. England hasn't attacked Germany since then. Germany hasn't attacked England. France hasn't attacked the Netherlands or tried to, invade Italy. The United States hasn't attacked any of those countries, has it? It created a peaceful, goodwill relationship among those nations. It did. Historically, that's what happened. So, if what I'm saying about Maitreya is true, then what he's saying is that the only way to create world peace is to do this globally. And if what I'm saying about Maitreya is not true, then it seems like because of the historical evidence of it, the only way to create peace is to bring about the principle of sharing. So you don't have to believe what I believe about who and what Maitreya is. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Now let's get on into the video a little bit. Now, if you have any questions, you can always post that question as a comment, and I do have a question or two to cover in this video. I do have some comments to cover as well. And you can also email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. Okay, so the first comment, actually, I neglected to say it was actually posted in the last video, but comes from a listener, Zen. There was a great TV series in the 80s called It's a Miracle. There are many episodes on YouTube. Also, it's fascinating just how many people have been touched by miracles in their lives. Yes, that's true. And Zen and everybody else, hopefully by, doing your own investigation on these miracles, going to the Share International website, reading about the different miracles that are going on, it might trigger a memory or two of a miracle that's happened to you personally that you might have forgotten about. So millions and millions and millions of people are having these miracles happen to them, whether it's kind of a miracle like seeing a UFO in the sky or crosses of light or something like this, or even a personal miracle for yourself where you were saved by an accident, where you leave the accident scene like, what happened? I'm not even hurt. You know what I'm saying? So it could be just as personal just for you, or it could be something that's happened to groups of people. You know what I mean? So you may have seen a weeping icon in a Catholic church. If you're a Hindu, you might have seen, and you're from India, you might have seen the Hindu milk miracle firsthand back in the 90s. I don't know, but by and large, and I'm sure there's one person out there that has had a miracle that it didn't leave them with hope. So I always have to leave that as a possibility. But the vast majority of people, when they've experienced these miracles, have been left with hope, right? Evidence of hope, right? So, but thank you for that, Zen, and I do recommend going to that YouTube and watching those episodes of It's a Miracle. Alrighty. Next comment is not... he doesn't like what I have to say. But it's okay. It comes from James Sosa. And more than likely, these people that I'm going to be reading these comments from, unfortunately, they're probably not going to take the time to really listen to these videos. But anyway, so bear with me, those of us who are listening to this. But maybe we can kind of come to a greater understanding about who and what Maitreya is and who and what he's not in the process. Dude, why you BS so much? You say Jesus wrote the Creme, which is completely false. When you mention Jesus died on the cross, when in fact it clearly says in the Quran Jesus never died on the cross. Does it really? I don't know. But it was made to look that way. Dude, you are such a liar. Okay. You're a phony, a big fat phony. All right. Anyway, when you start off a sentence with dude, it always reminds me of my 16-year-old daughter who calls me bruh. What I said was, okay, so here's the thing. Esoterically, which means that which is hidden, Jesus did die on the cross, just as it's written in the Bible. He was raised from the dead 3 days after, just as written in the Bible. Now, if you know about your, historical figures, you might have heard of this person, maybe not. It's not very well known, certainly not as well known as Jesus. Apollonius of Tyana, a Greek philosopher. And there's always been this controversy that Jesus somehow survived the cross, escaped from Palestine, and lived out his rest of his life as Apollonius of Tyana. Well, esoterically, that was his next lifetime, where he then became a master. Jesus is now one of the small group of masters who are coming out into the world along with Maitreya. And has been, Jesus himself was living for centuries in the Middle East, and then has since entered, right before Maitreya entered London, he along with some other masters slipped into some cities, and he has been living himself on the outskirts of Rome, according to what Benjamin Crumb's master said. And will be one of the early masters that Maitreya will introduce once Maitreya declares himself as Maitreya on the day of declaration. Now, Jesus had a disciple, a very advanced disciple, especially for the time, Muhammad, and overshadowed him. He was, Muhammad was in what's now called Saudi Arabia, right? Maybe it was called Persia, I guess, at that time. I don't know. Jesus was in Syria, or what's now known as Syria, and he overshadowed him and wrote the Quran, but taught the people around Muhammad in the very same way that Jesus was overshadowed by Maitreya. Maitreya was living in the Himalayas, 17,500 feet up, when Jesus was in Palestine. Overshadowed telepathically Jesus. So a bit of Maitreya's consciousness was speaking to the people in Palestine. The vast majority of the teachings of the New Testament is actually coming from the teacher, not from Jesus per se. Some of the teachings were, but Jesus taught about reincarnation, taught about the law of cause and effect, which is what the two great laws that govern humanity. Muhammad talked about the same thing. Krishna talked about the same thing. The Buddha talked about the same thing. It's all central truths. It's the same truth found within every one of the religions. The distinctions in the religions, the differences, the inaccuracies is all coming from man. It's not coming from the teachers and from the masters. In time, the ancient scriptures will be re-looked at. The masters themselves, Jesus is one of them, that will be involved very heavily with the Christian churches to help clean up the distortions in the Christian Bible, to have it closer to the truth and closer to what Jesus was talking about 2,000 years ago, for sure. And so any misunderstanding or anything that was said about Jesus not dying on the cross is, if it happens to say that in the Quran, I don't know, I can't argue with it either way, because I'm not a expert on the Quran. It's the inaccuracy is coming from man. So anyway, but it's the same reason why people don't understand that the law of cause and effect was written in the Bhagavad Gita through Krishna, and it was also written in the Bible. Jesus talked about what you sow shall you reap. Those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. Very simple. But he was talking about the law of cause and effect. It's the exact same truth that was written in the Bhagavad Gita. Exact same truth. The Buddha talked about the law of cause and effect in the same way. So in time, hopefully, we will all have a better understanding of the other religions and see the truth within all those religions and not be so compartmentalized in thinking that we are the sole owners of the truth. So anyway, but thank you for that. I appreciate your comment, James Sosa, nonetheless. All right. Next question, or next comment comes from Sanjay Kumar. Hi, I'm okay. I don't know what. You got to tell me what I'm is. I mean, I read this and I was like, I'm what? I'm cold, I'm hot, I'm old, I'm young, Anyway, but how you doing, Sanjay? I appreciate you listening. All right. Let's see. I'm not going to get into the comment from Jesse Christian. I'm going to kind of tie them all in together. Next one comes from JB Sykes. Maitreya is a deceiving calm. Okay. Deceiving con, maybe? Is that what you meant? I'm sure that's what you meant. And some of the other questions, or some of the other comments about, it says, who is Maitreya that is showing itself on TV? Why don't you say who it is? Tell people what. Is Maitreya not the Antichrist? Okay, so in these comments, now I understand why people like Patsy B, Gypsy Christian, JB Sykes, and so many others have the view that you have of Maitreya. But perhaps you could look at it like this. And I'm just going to pose this as a question. Have you ever seen Maitreya on TV and recognized him and know that that's Maitreya? Have you ever seen Maitreya in your life? Has he ever spoken to you? Have you ever felt his love? Have you ever experienced his wisdom? I venture to guess probably not. So why take that attitude now? Right? I mean, you're just taking swings in the dark. You have no idea who you're talking about, right? So, because you've never even seen him. I've seen Maitreya many times in my own life, you know what I mean? To leads me to believe that there is no truth to the fact that he is the Antichrist. There's none. The Antichrist has already come and gone, and it was an energy that was sent out during World War II through the Axis powers. You can't really say that Hitler was the Antichrist, but he certainly was the poster child for it. And it's already come and gone. One of the main, I think, misconceptions of Revelation is not so much about who and what the Antichrist is as a misinterpretation. It's the timing of everything. Everyone thinks that Revelation was written in there, that it was probably a few months, maybe a year, 7 years, or whatever it happens to be. These are all symbols. John was trying to explain what he saw. He saw the future in the way that he saw the future, and he was explaining it to people who couldn't understand what he was even seeing. So he wrote it in there as a symbol. I don't think for one second that John wrote in the Antichrist believing it was a person. But he couldn't have said it was an energy. What if these people understood? They would never understood it, right? And so even like I talked about the problems of the world, right? Where the markets it's a bubble. Well, one of the beasts in the Bible, he talks about the prostitute sitting on the throne, where all the leaders are drunk on her wine and so forth, and they commit adulteries toward their people. According to the masters, that beast is the markets of the world. That's what John saw. He saw the stock markets of the world in the way that it was, because time is happening all now. He was able to see it, but he wrote it in there as a prostitute. It was never written in there. There's never going to be a prostitute sitting on the throne somewhere, drinking wine, getting drunk, and all our world leaders go to visit this person and get drunk off the wine and betray their people. It's the fact that our world leaders are more concerned about profit than they are about their people. That's what he was talking about. That's the betrayal. That's the adulteries that they commit against their people. So and then when it comes to the Antichrist, just as I've said this, before, right? When Jesus said, "I come not to bring peace, but to bring a sword," right? To set father against son, mother against daughter, brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor. That's not a physical sword. It was a symbol. Just as the Antichrist is put in there as a symbol. But, I understand why everyone thinks this, or not everyone, but a lot of people think that he's the Antichrist, and they're very afraid of it because of that. But chances are you probably didn't even hear the video. That's where I said it's not so important to understand or believe what I believe about who Maitreya is. It's more about the priorities. But I'll even put myself in your shoes. When I first saw Maitreya in the 3rd grade, and he visited me in school, he gave me a huge hug, said I was his brother. I love you, I miss you. I pushed him away too. Never once for 1 second did I think that I would be, 30 or so years later, actually more than that, doing videos, talking to people about Maitreya. Never once thought about it, right? But I pushed him away too, just like you're pushing him away, But see him on TV, recognize him for who he is, experience his love, and then come back and tell me if you still think he's the Antichrist or not. But he'll love you the exact same way. All the people who will be against his policies, against what he wants, against peace, against the principle of sharing, think he's the Antichrist, screaming out that he's the Antichrist and so forth. You will see him love you and them and all those other people who are against what he has to say, the same way that he loves those people who are fighting tooth and nail for the environment. But don't underestimate his love, because his love comes from the highest, most pure source there is. And when he speaks to you in person, or if he speaks and you hear him on TV, the love that flows out of his heart is going right into yours. And the reason why I can sit here and I can say that you will one day experience the same oneness that he is talking about for humanity. You will see the need for peace. You will see the need that we need to end hunger in the same way that he sees it, is because that truth, that longing for unity is within your heart too. There's no difference between it. So when he's speaking to any one of us, that love is starting to awaken the heart and the truth which is already within your heart. So you can do whatever you want to do, but, I would say it's far better to just wait until you see him and recognize him before you make any kind of snap judgments. Right now, you're just taking swings in the dark, But by and large, more important, it doesn't matter whether you're a Christian, Muslim, Jew, atheist, Hindu, black, white, red, yellow, young, old, tall, short, bald, have a full head of hair. It doesn't matter. The most important thing that any one of us can do is start to bring about the principle of sharing. Hands down. The teacher has come back now the exact same way he's always come back, to fulfill a promise, not to meet everyone's expectation of what they expect him to come back. But he came back because of his love of humanity and to fulfill the promise that he made to come back and teach us. The teacher never, ever comes the way that we expect him or think that he should come back. Look at Jesus' life and how the people expected him to come a certain way. He didn't come anything like that. He came as a peaceful, humble son of a carpenter, not as a warrior king like the Jews were expecting. Talking of peace, love thy neighbor, forgiveness, turn the other cheek. Those were not things that they thought that the teacher or the Messiah would be saying, and they misunderstood him, and they missed him. So, hopefully this helps, but anyway, we will talk in future videos when the time arises. You take care, have a great day. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.